Hello everybody and welcome to the Baby to Sleep YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be talking you through the clock change, daylight saving. Okay, so we're coming into October. We're going to be getting what, if you've not got a child, is an extra hour in bed. Unfortunately, when you've got children, that extra hour in bed doesn't quite happen. If anything, it might actually just mean you end up an hour earlier. So what I'm going to do is give you as many tips as possible to try and help you avoid that situation. So yes, especially if you've already got an early riser, the last thing you need is a 5 o'clock riser waking at 4 o'clock in the morning. That is not helpful for anyone. So let's try and put some things into place to help. Right, first things first, we'll go for the easy route. If you've got a really chilled out, easygoing baby or a child that it doesn't really matter what time you go to bed, they're pretty chilled out, they just kind of roll with things. What you might want to do on the Saturday night is if they go to bed at 7 normally, you might just stretch them to 8 o'clock and they'll be absolutely cracking with that, and they'll just do their normal 11-hour average or however long your child sleeps for, and everything is hunky-dory. All is good with the world. Unfortunately, the majority of children and babies don't really fall into that category. They might need a little bit of help from us to help adjust them. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. We've got various options. So we've got one which is called split the difference. So this could be, again, I'm going to use 7 o'clock as a bedtime as an example, just because it's really easy. So what you might do is, rather than pushing them to 8 o'clock, you might decide that actually you'll move them to 7:30 on Saturday night. So then on Sunday night, the new 7 o'clock is what basically was the old 8 o'clock. Okay, so you might try and do it that way. So it's not a huge difference. It may mean that your little one will wake up half an hour earlier, but you might be more accepting of half an hour early than an hour early. Okay, so that might be a way to go. The other option, and by the way, don't worry, I'm going to give you some tips in a minute on how you can make all these work for you. So I'm just going to run through the options first, see what you feel possibly sits right with you, and then we'll talk about how you can obviously do the best things to implement these properly. So the other option is gradually. So if you've got quite a sensitive sleeper, so one that if they tend to go to bed later, naturally ends up waking earlier. I feel your pain, by the way. That's what I have in Sophia. She cannot go to bed later. Tried her many times thinking maybe we can chill and watch a film together. No, because we get an early rise in the morning. So it's just, So yeah, sometimes if you've got a really sensitive sleeper, you need to tweak things a little bit more gradually. So the way that you would possibly do this is you have to plan. If you're working, that can be really hard, especially if you've got things like nursery involved as well, because this takes a good few days to actually start implementing. So we're talking, what you're working towards is Saturday night being an 8 o'clock bedtime based on 7 o'clock being normal. So the way you would have to do this is you'd shift back 4 days. So what's that? Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. So on Wednesday night, what you would actually do is then you'd put your child to bed at 7:15. So you just do it 15 minutes later, in the hope that that 15 minutes later doesn't have too much of an effect and they wake up 15 minutes later in the morning. The following day, you'd put them to bed at 7:30. So that's just an extra 15 minutes later than they went the night before. And then following night on Friday night, you'd do 7:45. And then on Saturday night, you'd move them to 8 o'clock. So that's a gradual way to do it. Now, the reason I say this can be tricky is it's not just about what time they go to sleep. So this is the bit that's really important for all of these transitions, depending on how you do it, whether it's cracking on with it, whether it's splitting the difference, or whether you're going down a gradual route. It's not as straightforward as just stick them to bed at that time. Some might be, but what you really want to do is focus on trying to make sure that you shift the whole day routine a little bit. So for example, our body clocks are programmed to do certain things. So if we eat at the same time every day, we tend to get hungry around the same time every day. If we go to bed at the same time, we tend to get tired at the same time, because our body's producing that melatonin because it's used to going to sleep at a certain time. Our brain basically takes in everything. So our eyes see things, these signals go through to our brain and they tell us what we're going to be doing. They tell our body what we should be doing. So what we need to do is tweak these a little bit. So what we might want to do is shift all of our meal times. So if we're going on the gradual route, if we're just going to do 15 minutes later each day, what we might do is move all the meal times 15 minutes later each day as well. And then we might also move the naps 15 minutes later a day. That's if you've got a child that's napping. So you're gradually shifting the whole 24 hours, the whole routine, not just the sleep. If you're going for half an hour later, if you're going to split the difference, do 7:30 on Saturday night, 8:00 on 7:00 on Sunday night. You could go the other way if you really wanted to, and you could go for 7:30 on Friday night and then go for the 8:00 on the Sunday. It's Saturday night, sorry. It's completely up to you how you want to do it. But again, if you're going to move everything, even if it's by half an hour, shift everything. Shift the naps, shift the meals, move it all. And again, if you're going to go for the extra hour, if you're just going to push it, what you want to try and do is avoid sitting there for the extra hour. You don't want to have all your meals at the same time. Say, for example, you have tea at 5 o'clock. Maybe you've normally finished eating by 5:30, and normally an hour and a half later they're in bed. You don't want them just sitting there for 2.5 hours, because actually that's just going to they're just going to be irritable by the time they actually get to go to bed. So what you want to do is, if possible, shift everything, shift your meals, but maybe go for an extra walk in the afternoon or something. Go outside, go to the park, spend a bit longer out at the park, move your meal times a bit later, and then obviously have some, even if it's half an hour, so you've just got extra half an hour of playing or something between when you've had your tea and when it's bedtime. Just fill the day a little bit more with physical activity, just so it's tricking the brain. We want to try and have as much natural daylight as possible. I know that's tricky because obviously it's getting darker earlier, but we really want to help with that as well. So get out and about during the day, plenty of exercise, not just sitting stagnant. So these are all things that you can do as well to help. So the other things to consider is the fact that the mornings will then suddenly be a little bit lighter. So they've probably got used to really dark mornings now. Suddenly, actually, it's a bit lighter that bit earlier. So that might trigger them as well to wake up. So if you've not got blackout blinds up, you might want to put some up temporarily. You can get ones that just Velcro to the side, so you don't have to go out and get some really expensive blackout blinds or anything like that. The other thing to consider is sleep clocks as well. They tend to be able to understand sleep clocks, like the basic sleep clocks, from about 20 months old. So that's simply rabbits awake, rabbits asleep as an example. So they kind of get that, which is great. Some of them are a little bit more complicated, and you want to try and avoid ones that are really, really bright as well. But yeah, just really simplistic with sleep clocks. The other things you want to do with that is, in that morning, if they are waking that bit earlier, rather than getting up for the day, go into the room with them and just sit with them in the dark, nice and quiet, because we really want that body clock to get used to actually being in bed in the dark still, and not actually starting the day till the time that you say it's okay to start the day. And this is where sleep clocks can come in really, really handy, because you're not the bad guy. You're just waiting for the clock to say it's morning. So these are all ways that you can actually help as well, and they'll come in really handy naturally with early risers. So sleep clocks are a really good idea as well. So these are just a few things to consider. So lots of exercise, not spending too much time just sitting down, stagnating, waiting for bedtime to actually come. Like I say, shifting the bedtime an hour later if need be, if you've got a really chilled out, easygoing child. This one works really, really well. So if you've got a child, you're having to wake up in the morning to go to school or go to nursery, because they're actually going to bed later, this is actually a really, really good opportunity for you to actually shift everything that bit earlier. So that way it can actually work really, really go well in your favour, because you'll then get more of an evening and you're not having to wake up your tired child in the morning. So that's always a good way as well. So there's loads of ways that you can actually really, really help your little one during that transition, and hopefully it doesn't affect your sleep too much. Get yourself an early night anyway, just in case. I'm going to have to take my own advice on that one. What you've got to also remember, you are not in this alone. We are all doing it. Every single one of us, we're all going through that goddamn clock change at the same time. We're all going to have potentially a bit of early rising going on, but it doesn't last. It really doesn't last. We're all in it together, and it doesn't last. If you find that things are a bit tricky here and there, you know, reach out for some help if you're not getting back on track, but it shouldn't take long to get back on track. What you might want to do, if you want to just do bedtime a bit later, you might decide to throw an early, sort of like a late morning, very early afternoon cat nap in there or something like that with the older children that aren't maybe napping anymore. With your younger ones, you might decide to throw an extra nap in there just to get them through to bedtime, but they're just a few extra little bits for you anyway. I hope you found this helpful. We have loads and loads of videos on the YouTube channel, so get yourself subscribed. You will get a new video with brand new information on, and that's going to help and support you on your parenting journey. So I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you on our next video. See you later. Bye.